What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Jacked Ramsays, Damian Marang, Brandon Sprague. It is a mailbag edition here on Sunday night. And what time is it now? 7:22. There you go.
7:22.
All right, that's 7-ish. I said 7-ish.
Well, you wouldn't shut up. You're a
It's
big
true.
talker.
I am. I always talk. We don't do a ton of prep before the show, but what we do is we talk about everything else but the show. That's kind of how that works. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate you. We love you. Like, rate, review, subscribe. Help us grow the show. It is technically 5 days until the NBA trade deadline. By the time you all are watching this or listening to on the podcast, or watching here on Monday morning or Monday afternoon, be 4 days away, 3.5 really, because Thursday at noon is what we're looking at. Got to check my phone because it keeps going off. But I hate to actually miss something live, as we've already had Kyrie Irving traded from the Brooklyn Nets to the Dallas Mavericks. I had a reeling suspicion that was going to get done before the deadline. I did not think it was going to get done 2 days later. We'll talk about that. Little weird to see that happen right out of the gate, but I don't know. What are your initial thoughts, reactions to Kyrie kind of breaking the seal on the big time trade deadline stuff?
I think it's important for the league because now the first big domino has fallen. They've gotten out in front and they said, "Hey, we're making a big trade. Here we go." I think it's an incredibly risky, maybe slightly advantageous move for Dallas, but I also think it's too risky for anything I'd ever want to do, and I don't think I would ever trust that individual. For Brooklyn, I get it. We can talk about value of trades because Chris Haynes leaked what the other trade offers were from Phoenix and the Lakers. But I kind of get it for Brooklyn's standpoint. You're acquiring draft assets. You're getting some talented role guys. There's a report out there that they want to keep it going with KD. We'll see how KD feels about that. But they know Dallas might not even keep Kyrie. So you get all these assets for a guy who might not even stay with the team you're trading him to. And also, I just think they made this move so quickly because they're done with the crap. They've already gone through this with him before. This came out of left field, according to all his teammates. So, screw him. Get it done. Ship his ass out of here. And I think that's what you kind of saw happen there.
Yeah, I mean, there's already a note in The Athletic talking about how Joe Tsai, part of this deal was to make sure that he didn't go to the Lakers.
Sure.
For anybody that doesn't think or that thinks that everything operates from a purely team-building standpoint and it's a 2K simulation, that would be bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Human emotions factor into all this, and everybody who likes to grandstand, I wouldn't do that. Yeah, you would. Everybody does. That's what. Here's one of the really important things that I've learned is that everybody has their buttons, no matter what it is. And one of the interesting notes that I've heard around the league this year is that I feel weird even saying this because it sounds like I'm kissing ass, and I don't want it to be that. But it matters in that I've had multiple people who I trust in those circles all say the same thing. There's a different tenor or a different tone around the Trailblazers now that Cronin is in charge. And the gist of it is he's much easier to deal with. And that I think part of that matters. And one of the things that I've heard on the flip side of that is nobody wants to deal with the two teams that were kind of left standing here, and that's Phoenix and LA. Nobody likes and or trusts Pelinka, and James Jones is kind of hard to deal with. They don't really make all that many transactions. They kind of want more than perhaps should be asked, is how I've heard it phrased. So when Joe Tsai is basically like, nah, screw the Lakers, and Kevin Durant wanted to go to the Suns, so why would I send Kyrie to the Suns? Mm-hmm. Why do anybody any favors? I think, listen, I think it's petty. I think it'll bite you in the ass, and we're probably looking at the third Nets owner in the last 10 years, as both Prokhorov and Tsai Prokhorov moved on. I don't know if Tsai's cut out for this.
Really? I'm not saying you're wrong, but I think this particular situation, first of all, I think back all the time, you're going to roll the dice on a Kyrie-KD partnership 10 out of 10 times, okay?
Oh, for sure.
But
and they weren't going to the Knicks until another stupid owner in Dolan screwed it up. That was always where they were going.
There's a part of me that's I remember the Nets pre-KD, though. They were fun. They were scrappy. They didn't have a
Yeah,
superstar.
the Dinwiddie and Joe Harris team.
Yes,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, the Karis LeVert team.
Mhm.
Those teams were fun and scrappy. And I sometimes, when you're not in a good position, I think, to make such a drastic cultural shift from what you are and what you're building to hand everything to two dudes, I think you get blindsided, and also you get trust issues that pop up. And here you are, Kevin Durant, maybe asking for a second trade in as many years. We'll see. Kyrie Irving, most untrustworthy pro athlete maybe that exists, and he just out of the blue hits everybody. I hear what you're saying, but there's a part of me that appreciates Josiah being a little petty because that dude effed him out of a lot of money.
On multiple levels.
No, on multiple levels.
Yeah.
And so, like, I kind of understand the petty here. Is that fare them well long term? Probably not.
Probably not. Or in the short term either.
But I kind of like having an owner in a league. Like, I'm not always pro owner. I'm most of the time pro player, unless you're a douchebag. And then I'm kind of like, I'm pro owner sticking it to an athlete and saying, no. I'll play game. I'll play ball. I'm not going to put up with this.
Yeah.
And so it's petty, but I kind of like it by Josiah.
The question I asked on Twitter was this: has any team that's moved on from Kyrie Irving regretted it?
No.
Some people were like, maybe the Cavs. They did get swept the next year. And I'm like, yeah, but I think they're in a good place now. And part of like the package they sent out for Donovan Mitchell included the pick that was in the Kyrie Irving trade.
Also, they got back to the finals. Like, I'm not going to act like they were destroyed by Kyrie Irving leaving.
Yeah.
LeBron was so godlike at that moment that it didn't matter. They
Boston. It's kind of funny. Kyrie leaves Cleveland in the finals. Or Kyrie leaves Cleveland in the finals. Kyrie leaves Boston in the finals. We're going to see the Nets in the finals in a year or two? Like, just noticing a trend here is all I'm noticing. But we don't spend the whole time talking about Kyrie. It's just it's an interesting place to start and lead into this. Kevin Durant. I've got a ton of questions from everybody about Kevin
Durant.
Durant.
A lot of KD stuff, yeah.
If Kevin Durant puts in the request, I would imagine it's already in the works and not public, and then it'll go into the summer. And Phoenix is on the list to begin with. And if I was a betting man, I would bet on Phoenix being the team that acquires him if he does move.
And that's an interesting position, I think, for KD to take. Why Phoenix? What about Phoenix right now strikes you as they're ready to win the championship? Playing with Devin Booker? Because you're going to have to trade probably Bridges.
I think leverage-wise, Ayton.
Okay.
Send Paul somewhere else.
Okay.
In another deal, and you're keeping the core of basically Mikhail, Book, and KD, which that's really good.
It's good on paper.
Yeah, I would argue that's very good.
I'm not convinced about Devin Booker leadership stuff and Kevin
I don't
Durant.
think he needs. I don't think either one of them really kind of needs to be the number one.
So who's the number one?
I think you go and try and get a dog. I think they circle back to their Jay Crowder type. Like your number one doesn't need to be your best player. I'm a firm believer in that.
Well, good luck. Good luck to him on that. I don't see it.
I would believe in that trio more than I would the Harden, Durant, Kyrie trio, just because of the combustion.
Sure, because of those. Yeah, because of the personality types that you just listed in that. I'd believe more in the Dame Kevin Durant duo than I would a Phoenix trio, but that's maybe a biased statement to say.
Yeah, and the other part of this is you know what, we'll talk about Simmons a little bit later because I've had a bunch of people ask about that. But
I think they're going to blow it up now. That's why people are curious.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm 100% on that line of, you know, where the Nets go from here. Everybody had a question about KD. Like, do you throw all in? Like, it depends on what your level of all in for KD would be. But like, you would have to talk me out of going for KD more than talking me to going in for KD. Does that make sense?
Sure. I mean, but I would assume the players offered in a KD swap are pretty evident.
Yeah. I mean, you need the necessary salary and you need the young guys. And the question is, could you keep one of them? And I think that becomes the interesting question.
From an asset standpoint, I mean, if Brooklyn would allow that, then cool. But maybe this is Brooklyn's stupidity. I don't see why they would.
I don't either, but I like to think about the idea of...
Oh, I love to think about the idea as well. I'm with you there 100%.
You know, got to figure it out. Shout out to chat who said that maybe the Dame KD Eubanks trio.
Championship, baby.
But this is a good question, I think, to get us started. Completely derail from all the other KD Kyrie stuff. We'll circle back to it here in a little bit, but I want to make sure we get as many of your guys' questions in as we can. This from It's Kyle at KHardos44. Perhaps you need a non-trade deadline question. I'm going to turn this into a trade deadline question, so just keep with me here. Perhaps you need a non-trade deadline question. The Blazers are undersized and slow. They play at the 24th slowest pace in the NBA. Could a lot of the defensive problems be helped by playing faster? If you're going to play small ball, you got to run the big guys off the court, right? Okay. So there's a couple things here that I want to touch on. First of all, yes, they do play slow, but the faster this team has played, the more turnover prone they've been. And that's pretty much normal around the league. The other part of that is the idea of taking that small ball. I don't know if necessarily, how many teams have really stayed big, truly big, when they've gone small? Like Chicago kind of did with Vooch, but it's more about just kind of how that team is built. They're just big as hell. But Memphis, they didn't have Adams, so they couldn't really go super big. They played a lot of Tillman and a lot of, or not as much as Brandon Clark as I thought of. But the idea of that playing faster, solving the defensive problems, typically when you play faster, it can lead to more defensive issues because you have live ball turnovers, because you're putting more possessions in a game. And when you put more possessions in a game, it means you need to play more defensive possessions. Mm-hmm. Typically, slowing things down limits those possessions, but it does amplify the effectiveness and the worth of each possession. So you got to kind of have to find your value scale. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. What do you think about that in general?
I think the turnover problem with moving fast is what would bother me, but I would also say their inability to slow down transitional hoop, even in playing a slower pace, is an obvious problem. I felt like it's been a problem all year for them. Now, sometimes they get caught up when they do the back and forth stuff and they speed it up a little bit. But still, even now, when you slow up the offense, their inability to stop transition points is startling to me. How many times in a game do you feel like you see them? They get a bucket and it's like two passes, the other team's getting an easy layup.
Well, Brandon, what if I told you that what you're feeling is absolutely real, and they are in the 23rd percentile in points given up in transition?
Well, I was looking at cleaning the glass numbers earlier, and I'm just like, okay, good to know, because sometimes my eyes can be deceiving. But then
the 24th for record. Yeah. So these are the teams that are worse in transition defense.
Yep.
Houston, San Antonio. It's weird. It's almost like both those teams play super fast. Very interesting. Wizards, 76ers, not quite as fast. Toronto, their offense is janky. Utah, pretty quick. Then the Blazers, and then the Lakers. Then you go to the very top. Bucks, Celtics, Warriors. Best transition defenses in the league.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, pretty damn good defenses in general.
Yes.
They're buttoned up everywhere defensively.
But here's where Portland is okay. Transition defense, they're middle of the pack as far as total possessions, which is insane considering how much they turned the ball over for a short period of time. Well, not a short period of time, for basically the month of December. You think about that, and it's kind of like, So they did figure something out, or teams had bad luck against them in transition. Mm-hmm. But I get what Kyle's saying here in general. I would like to see them ratchet up the pace when they are playing smaller, and they have the last couple of games. When they've had Trendon at the 5, they have kind of picked things up ever so slightly.
But real quickly, isn't I think a big part of this too? I mean, the elephant in the room is we've heard for how many years with Dame teams, we're gonna run, we're gonna get out. We hear it we've been hearing that every year since Terry was the coach, and Chauncey comes in and we're gonna do things differently. And it was the same stuff this offseason. We're gonna get out, we're gonna move.
And then
they didn't. And it's not who they are. I know the last couple of games might be skewing some of those numbers a little bit, but it's not something I'm putting all the eggs and this is going to keep happening basket.
I like that basket. It's going to keep happening basket.
I want to. I need a basket like that.
This from Fuller Hicks at Fuller Hicks. I saw somewhere that Nas is mentioned as a trade partner for Vando. They tripping, right? All right.
Yeah, I didn't see this. You told me about it pre-pod. I did not see that.
Yeah. Okay, let's set the primer for trade deadline stuff. Do you know who they are? If the answer is no, do not take what they say at all. It's that simple. Turn on notifications for the guys that you trust. Don't get caught by the fake check marks, especially now with that Twitter blue nonsense.
Yeah.
And more than that, if it's just some rando, don't go with it. I don't think there's a world that exists where the Portland Trailblazers would trade Nasir Little, who just signed a very team-friendly deal, 4 years, $28 million, in a guy that they believe in, and a guy that I think Dame loves having around, who fits exactly kind of the profile of what the organization is looking for a guy that plays another position who's due for a payday. And I love Vando.
Mm-hmm.
Now, would Utah possibly put it out there that they would like Nasir Little on their team? Yes. Why? Because he's good and his contract is great. That's why.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what to say beyond that. I don't know why Portland would do this.
Because they're desperate for slightly bigger depth, but I'm just playing devil's advocate.
While making their forward core smaller.
As
far as personnel.
You don't got to argue with me. I don't understand that move either. I did not see who put that out, but I think when you get close to the trade deadline, you mentioned the Twitter blue thing. Like, I just think the reality is it's pretty easy for everybody to fall for kind of everything they're reading.
Yeah.
Falling on those traps.
Yeah. Make sure you turn the notifications on. The other part of that is, I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about the newsbreakers. Like, go with them. Don't turn my notifications on. I'll ruin your phone. I tweet garbage anyways. This is the other big elephant in the room. Bruce Caesar Bennett at C's25. What is the percentage that we'll see Nurk in a Blazers uniform after the deadline? We kind of talked about this the other day. I still feel like it's not a coin toss, but I believe that the Blazers, if they can find a way to do something that makes relative sense, they would do it. As an exercise, with the Kyrie Irving trade today, this is where I said I would steer into this. Ben Simmons for Nurk and Hart, and I would say Ben Simmons and one of the better picks they have for Nurk and Hart to take on that deal. Would you do it? And does that make sense for you? Because it would hard cap you, basically. You would actually have to make another move because it would be, I want to say, $80,000 over if I have the salaries right.
I don't know if I would do that deal. It would make more sense to me for Ben Simmons to go to a place like San Antonio than it would a situation like Portland. And it has nothing to do with the assets. I know Josh and Nurk need to go. But what does Ben Simmons... by the way, real quick, people could hear this and go, oh, really? That's the opinion now. Like, yeah, there was a moment where I wanted Ben Simmons.
Mm-hmm.
So what? I'm allowed to change my mind.
Things change and opinions change.
And I'm changing. I don't want that. I think it puts them in too tough of a position going forward. And there's a really good shot that if Simmons were to come here and it not be much different than what he's doing in Brooklyn and what he did at the end of Philly, you're trading not even amazing assets, and you somehow might get worse assets in return down the road at the end of the contract. And so, like, it just is a tough spot to put yourself in. And I don't know if Portland might do it, but it would reek of absolute desperation. I don't know if that's a move that would really make a lot of sense for them.
You would run up against it. It would be the opposite of what the Dallas Mavericks did with the Kristaps Porzingis deal, which was taking Porzingis' big deal and turning him into two smaller ones in Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans. And we just saw that Spencer Dinwiddie get moved in the deal for Kyrie Irving, and they tried to get the Bertans deal included as well, or Tim Hardaway Jr.'s money as well on the way out to get some of their bad money off their books. So, which way do you slice it? Which way do you view it? For me, it was an interesting thought exercise, particularly if you talked about one of the better first-round picks that they have.
Sure.
The risk is Ben Simmons, and
Yeah.
you still need to find a big, and your cap position is certainly frustrating, and you were absolutely in the luxury tax, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, with Dame, Ben, Grant, and Anfernee. Like, that's, 35, 60, 100, 120, 130 million between those four.
Mm-hmm.
But, does that work as salary ballast for a move this summer? And does that pick, like if it's a really good pick, does that allow you to, if it's a pick further out, does it allow you to redirect Ben when he's got 1 year less on his deal if it didn't work out? I don't know. More than anything, more than me saying yes or no to it, it's more of a interesting thought.
But I also,
exercise.
you got to think of the locker room implications too here.
Yes, that's not just cut and dry. It's not the black and white of this.
You could bring in. I mean, again, I've said in the past, roll the dice on DeMarcus Cousins, for example, and there's been like, well, the locker room stuff, and this was years and years ago when he was a King. But like, there is an element here where this team is kind of balancing 500, sub 500. They want to make the playoffs, and what if you bring in a dude in that has no interest in playing, no interest in giving you everything he's got every night, has interest in easily sitting the minute his knee feels even a little achy, like. I wonder what that does to them. And I don't know if that's good for them to finish the year with that kind of momentum and that kind of energy going into what this summer is or could be.
That's actually been one of the things I've been impressed with over the last couple of weeks when they were mired in that absolute crap fest.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not in the locker room right after games. So there's that time period of press conferences and stuff like that. But you have a general sense of how guys are doing mentally, emotionally, when you walk in there, especially when you've been around them all season.
Right.
And even in a loss, it felt like they were appropriately pissed, frustrated, disappointed, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. There weren't guys like after a loss like hooting and hollering, music, like they were professional losers in the sense. And I know that's going to be taken out of context to an extent, but do you understand what I'm saying? Like, they had the right attitude following a loss. Like, they were on to the next,
yes. Yeah. I get what you mean. It's like, it's one thing to be pissed and that you're stuck, but you're going back to the next game and you're trying to make the corrections and you're giving everything you got. There's not been a give up.
No.
It's not a give up. It's either outman/sourced with your lack of size. I mean, Chicago beat them on the boards, right? They've had those problems. Or it's an off night and you're not where you want to be, but it's not where they're coming in and you go, well, no chance in hell. They fight and they go on a 2-1 road trip with one of those wins being at Memphis. It's not a give up factor yet. No. Whereas I feel like if you acquired the wrong asset into the locker room, it's not that I doubt Dame's ability as a leader. It wouldn't be that. It certainly wouldn't be that. It would be more the residual, like, what's the stink that comes off him? And
no, it's the residual off? Ben Simmons.
Sure.
Like we could call it what it is. Like, he has his own particular eau de parfum.
Yes, he's got his own stench.
Yeah, and it's...
and sometimes it smells like give up.
Yeah, no, it does. It's real stinky. It also smells like the money he's counting.
It'd be really funny to make that an SNL skit, like a Ben Simmons type player where you just like never play and it's
or make a Ben Simmons cologne. It stinks.
Yeah. Are you walking in the give up? And it's like him with his shirt unbuttoned and the wind's blowing. He's like, the give up. The give up.
Available at Macy's.
Are you tired? Are you tired of your marriage, Ben Simmons? The give up.
Hates your job so much that you want to get paid to not go. The give up.
The give up. He just walks into the office setting like Terry Tate. Bam.
Just sprays it on it all over him. I give up.
There's all these girls who are absolutely like awful in society. They're latching on like, oh, we always give up when we smell Ben. They give up.
Oh, we're going to hell. Oh, God.
Oh, stop. You could make fun of me like that if I was worth $300 million in my career. I wouldn't give a shit.
Yeah, it is.
Come on.
So, the group of everybody in here was like, does the Kyrie trade open everything up going forward? Like, I don't think a lot of the league was waiting on that. What they're waiting on is Kevin Durant.
Sure.
That's what
I
they're
meant.
waiting on.
It
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
that Kyrie's going to move. Let's wait for him to move. It was like, okay, the biggest trade that could have happened right now in the moment happened. Now there's going to be some domino effect to that, you'd imagine.
Yes. But it's not like the big deal that opens up the floodgates, so to speak. If anything, I think there's a couple teams that may be kind of reticent to really do anything along those lines, simply because the idea of KD being available this summer.
Right.
If they're getting those signals. This from Jared Cowley, at Jared Cowley. Ahead of the deadline, what should realistic expectations be for Blazers fans? What would be the difference between a successful trade deadline and an unsuccessful trade deadline for Portland this year? What would you call a successful trade deadline?
Trading Hart and Nurk and acquiring more depth while maybe bringing in a surprising player that could help them going forward.
What's unsuccessful?
Trading Josh Hart for one player.
So, just for giggles, Josh Hart for Jake Crowder.
Doesn't do a lot for me.
Okay. I think I would stand by my line of a successful trade deadline would be 2 players. The over on the 1.5. It is no small task for the Blazers if they did it. Mm-hmm. Not just transactionally, but how often in season, outside of last year where they tanked, it's a bad example, are 2 starters traded from a lineup?
Not very.
Not in season.
No, the deadline largely doesn't involve a lot of that.
So for the Blazers to make that move again, remember, they came into this year, the only remaining starters were Damian Lillard.
But the only, okay, so to what you just said, though, about the deadline with the starter thing, the only examples I think you'd probably be able to cite on a consistent basis in that regard would be teams not highly thought of. It'd be bad teams selling off assets, right?
Regularly. The Sacramento Kings, who retool their lineup every single year.
And I think that is where Portland would be one of the unique ones there, where record-wise they're not near where they want to be, but they're a buyer in that sense more than being the seller. I think they're sellers in those situations, but as a buyer, you don't see that very often. No.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. For me, the unsuccessful part of this would be, cratering would be nothing.
Well,
I'm just like, there's a world where that, like, we need to operate in a world where that option exists.
That's a hard world to live in.
Listen, it sucks. And like, for all the people who are just say that I'm a Joe Cronin lackey, I'm telling you right now, if they do nothing, I will not be thrilled, to say the least. If they come out of this deadline with nothing, that show at noon, tune into the radio, because the dump button Jeff Russ better be on top of it. That's all I'll say. I had a quasi legendary meltdown at Summer League when they signed Evan Turner and Alan Crabb to those deals back to back.
Those are pretty bad moments.
I was in a room full of 20, 25 media personalities. We were all staying in the same house, from ESPN, Yahoo, SB Nation, and then we had like team executives all in there too. Like it was like a house from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, but with a bunch of blog bros. Mm-hmm. And I had a full-on meltdown.
I mean, nobody faults you for that, though. I think you were reacting in real time the way other people were reacting.
Good times. So yeah, my cratering is nothing. My bad deadline is doing one.
Yes.
One move. Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
And
by the way, let me say real quick, if it is a Jay Crowder for Josh, I know I'm poo-pooing that. I can't be convinced otherwise. It's not that he won't. I mean, he might help. He'll shoot the ball. He at least will shoot the basketball. I'm not a big believer in the dude at this point of his career.
Yeah.
It's not. This ain't Jay Crowder from Cleveland, LeBron, or Miami the year they went to the finals in the bubble run. Like, that was 3 years ago.
He's 32.
Yeah,
he seems like the
around
piece
for a while.
Yeah, he seems like the piece. Like, he should go to Milwaukee.
Yes,
he's a last piece to a title team, and not in the sense of like the piece that matters the most, but it's the one that you go grab of like down the stretch.
Yes, to a Portland team, I don't know if he changes them all that much.
I think they're 2 years away from that team.
Yeah,
if things go right.
Right.
Like again, like, but here's the thing. I shouldn't say that one deal would be unsuccessful. If the one deal was swapping out Nurkic, it would be successful.
Okay, I would say that as well, but yeah, no, I think that's fair. If I would want Josh Hart move, because then you're losing him for nothing, but again, I guess that would depend on what Joe feels. But you get rid of Nurkic, and that's the move you make. I won't be the most upset. I'll be happy you at least got that to move on. You got him to move on, and you cleared your way of your negative vibes and all that stuff that he's kind of seems to be bringing right now.
Okay, yeah, I think we're in simpatico on both of those, and the vibes and obviously play on the floor, and stylistically, which kind of leads me to this. At Nerd Runner, what do you think about the slide in defensive rating over the last 10-ish games? Does it worry you even if they've started winning more? It's bottom 2, if I remember correctly, over the last 10, considering it's a retooling year. One thing I wanted to see is better defense. Okay, this is an interesting thing because I have talked to Dame, I have talked to the coaches, I have talked to Ant, and I think Nas about this. The idea of why they can't be good at both offense and defense at the same time. They have not come close. It's either one is really good and the offense is really good, the defense is bad, or the defense is good and the offense is bad. Remember, they started the season with their defense like 4th.
Yeah, and their offense was
dog shit.
Yeah, like 18th, 19th.
It was worse. I think it got down like 22nd. But they got their offense ramped up, and then their defense sucks. Like, it's just this back and forth. For reference, over the last 2 weeks, what Nerd Runner was saying, their offense has been god tier. 128.5. That's insane. The best offense in the NBA right now on the season is Denver at 119.
Yeah.
That is 10 points per 100 possessions better. That is bonkers. The flip side of this, of course, is the Blazers have the 29th best defense.
I thought that was supposed to be fixed with the coaching change.
Turns out no.
But I was sold. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know what do people want to say. What do you want to say about this? This roster ain't complete. And
they've shown that they can do both, just not at the same time.
Yeah, but see, what would you wager is more likely to be consistent with them? You would bet on
the offense, absolutely. But
so, like, the defense it feels like for them the defensive part is just kind of like the right team. They played the right teams at the right time type stuff more than it is like philosophy. Because if it's philosophy and it's principled scheme, like why would you go from being good to that to being like one of the worst in the league at it?
I don't think that it's necessarily I don't think, number one, this team can be a great defensive team.
I don't think they can either.
Do I think they can be good? Yes. I think they can be good in the sense of like 12th to 14th. It's playing small has had its advantages over the last couple of weeks, but it's also had its disadvantages. The flip side of that is as it relates to Nurk, last couple of weeks when he was playing more, before he got hurt, before he was in and out of the lineup, before that, the defense wasn't that much better with him on the floor.
I don't think you have enough dogs defensively in your starting lineup, and then you add the bench, which has kind of been, in flux most of the year with injuries and sit-outs and non-COVID illnesses. Like, I just think it's a combination of those two. I think you have enough defensive dogs on the starting lineup, and they haven't really had the depth enough, I think, to come off the bench and help them there.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I think they're going to end up dealing with, or I shouldn't say dealing with. One of the things they're going to look to address here at the trade deadline is the ability to have lineups that are a little more structured with that bench group to get more contributions out of on both sides. Because if you look at quote unquote the bench group, it's kids. It's GP and kids. And I think that's part of what they need to kind of restructure and how they want to go about it. Maybe having some guys a little bit more veteran to bolster those things.
Sure.
That's ultimately, I think, the road that would end up going down. Perhaps, maybe. I don't know. Got a lot of questions about the usual targets. Mo Bamba, Jared Vanderbilt. I've got a Vanderbilt video. Hopefully I'll put it out Monday morning. I think that's the plan, depending on how this goes. Compressing and finalizing and pushing things out of Adobe is always fun. I've had more than a few crashes. But as it pertains to Vanderbilt, of all the names that Portland has been linked to, that's the one that I would say is the most likely to make it to the finish line. None of the other names are flagging as much. But the thing about the Vanderbilt deal, as likely as it may sound, it's still Danny Ainge, and they're still likely going to wait until the last possible second because Danny Ainge, listen, man, say what you want about the guy, good, bad, or otherwise, he gets value. Mm-hmm. And how do you get the most value? Is it giving up early, or is it waiting till the last possible second?
Yeah, you seep into the desperation.
Yeah, and
shit, that clock's gonna tick if they don't call in right now.
Tick, 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 tick. But when it's all said and done, I do still believe that those guys will, or I should say, that guy will end up with Trailblazers. If I had to pick anybody.
Yeah, I'd seen something. I think it might have been on NBA TV. It might have been on ESPN. It was somebody basically to the effect of Portland's going to be one of the teams that waits. It's going to be last minute type stuff. They're just trying to sort out who they want to move, and I mean we know who they want to move, but like where they want to move them for what they're going to get back in return and what makes the most sense for them. It might be one of those. It's 11 a.m. and
they want to put all the pieces out. Like if you're playing, what's that strategy game? Risk.
Sure, I've never played it.
What's the military strategy one? Different countries. Anyways,
Risk.
It is Risk. Yeah. But like you want to have the whole board out in front of you.
Sure.
You want to see everything that's out there and understand. Because here's the other thing, Cronin cut his teeth on the CBA. So order of operations. Remember remember how many times I said order of operations last year before the CJ deal? Mm-hmm. Why it matters and the different things that you have to consider when going through everything. That doesn't change here. I think it's very much still the same idea of you may not be able to, let's a perfect example. If they swapped Nurk for Hart, again, I'm not saying this is close to happening or it's even been discussed. But if they were to swap him for Ben Simmons, they would be hard capped immediately. So they would, if they were going to do anything, they'd have to do it before that. If they ended up basically at that number, because I think it's like $6.8 million difference between the two, and they're $6.7 million away from the hard cap. So just as a simple mechanism, understanding that, and I think that's exactly it with what you said as far as Portland being one of those teams waiting till the last second. Speaking of timing, we've gotten this question a few times, but I guess I'll give a little bit of a non-update update. This is from Givens Nathan. Is there any kind of update on Jusuf Winslow's timeline to return to the floor? We talked about this when he first had the injury, right, Brandon? Mm-hmm. When he rolled that thing, he turned it so sideways, I immediately said, he'll be back after the All-Star break. When you turn your leg into a J, it's almost always going to be one of two things. A fracture or a high ankle sprain. Mm-hmm. And we saw basically the same thing that happened to Tony Pollard.
Yeah.
It's just that
was a break.
Yeah. It ends up being one of two things.
It's a high ankle sprain.
It literally both the same things. They're, when your leg, when it bends at that spot, two things happen. That's kind of how that goes. I've seen Justice around. He's been obviously on the bench, but like right before they left for the trip, Justice, it was the first time I had seen him in warm-up gear before a game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, normally he's just in civilian clothes, chilling, whatever. I just called him civilian clothes. Non-team apparel.
I've noticed you've been using the term civilian lately, and I'm like, where's this coming from?
It's still there.
Yeah.
It's still
in the back of the brain.
Yeah. But he was standing underneath the hoop, like, just soft layups. He was not transferring any weight through his legs at all. Like, it wasn't like bend the knees and extend it all the way up. It was very ginger, I would say. So, and that was basically, a week ago?
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see how he can ramp up and practice in the next 2 weeks or in the next week and be ready to go. And why? You have 2 games this week before the trade deadline.
Yeah, it's kind of pointless.
I don't don't get me wrong. They'd love to have the body back, especially with Nurk out until the All-Star break.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Justice was supposed to be the funky small ball center kind of dude, which they've already kind of done with GP. Did you notice that the other day?
I did.
Yeah, they threw GP in what was basically the 5, and it was chaotic and interesting, for sure.
But I like that they're experimenting with it. They don't kind of have a choice at this point.
I wish it was against a team that didn't have like Vooch and Patrick Williams on the floor, like just big, physical dudes. Just that one's tough. But yeah, they're just kind of in a weird position. From Jeff Burchett, at JD Burchett, Burchett, sorry, I don't know which one it is. After Friday night, can Portland get Mo Bamba for a Mo Harkless-like deal? There's a precedent. Of course, a Mo Harkless-like deal is a top 55 protected second-round pick, the least protected pick I think you can give out. I don't think you can get out a top 59. I could be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be really funny if you had a top 59 protected pick and it was a draft like last year where there's only 59 picks. Because there was 4 was it the Sixers got hit with tampering for that one? Sixers or Bulls? One of them. Anyways.
I think it was the Bulls, yeah.
But can I get Mo Bamba for that? No, but here's the interesting thing. You can use the Rui Hachimura deal, that trade, as kind of a measuring stick for second draft players.
Sure.
Bamba was a year later, right? Because he was at the 2018. Yeah, so he would have been 2019. Rui was 2018. Could you get Bamba for a slightly better player than Kendrick Nunn and 2 seconds? Probably.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not exactly a Mo Harkless-like deal, but look, man, Kendrick Nunn...
Would Keon and 2 seconds get it done?
I think Keon in 2 seconds gets quite a bit done around the NBA right about now for that kind of player.
Right.
And I would imagine that if a deal was done for Jared Vanderbilt, it would be at least, via squint, a close relative of that.
The weird thing would be to go from Obamba, that's the deal you get, but you somehow strike out on Nurk.
Yeah, which way you go down the stretch.
And I'll be honest with you, man. Right now, I want to play Bamba and Eubanks more than I want to play Nurkic.
Just to see what you got, because you know what you got in the other one.
Yeah, I know what one is, and I know what another one has been, and I know he's dealing with back stuff now after the Chicago game. But yeah, instinctually, I'd want to go Bamba and Eubanks more than I want to go balancing Nurkic with Bamba.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. It's hard to envision the team actually doing that.
I don't think they would. I'm just like, imagine though if that's what it costs, and Joe's in a position where he goes, yeah, why not give the shot to the guy that would beat up Austin Rivers and see what he's like? And like KOC wrote about this, and his note on Mo Bamba could be of interest to the Blazers. His note is, but he's never been in a winning context. And I'm like, I'm sure there's a little more to it than just that, but to that point, he has never been in a spot where maybe he loves playing with Dame and Ant and rolling and getting dunks all over the place and stretching the floor a little bit.
Having more than one guard who can handle the ball?
Yeah, I'm not trying to keep him from he's been Mr. Perfect in Orlando, hasn't worked out. I'm sure he's got his faults and his blame, but also he's still 23?
Yes.
He's 23 years old. Let him come see what it's like to play here.
Same draft as Gary and Ant.
and now he's a shooter. So it's like, yeah, I could understand Joe's want of trying that out.
Yeah, I mean, again, at the cost, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we talk about the recent run. They've been obviously 2-1 on the road trip. 3 of the last 4 they've won. Memphis being the best one of the season. But this is from at Bob Bradstreet, because I've gotten some form of this in a lot. So I'm curious why Chauncey has such a reluctance to shorten Hart's role in the lineup when he's obviously struggling offensively, especially in the fourth quarter. But he will pull Sharp immediately after a missed defensive assignment in the fourth quarter. Number one, he's not pulling Shaedon Sharp after one missed assignment. Mm-hmm. He's pulling Shaedon Sharp after multiple. Chauncey has talked about at length about how he lets Shaedon play through things. Because how are you? I think his exact line before they went on the road trip was, "How are you supposed to learn if I just keep yanking you? Mm-hmm. How can you play through it?" He goes, "Even the best guys make mistakes. You got to learn to make your mistakes and play through them." But why he will pull him in a fourth quarter is because he doesn't trust him, and he shouldn't. He's a rookie. You know how many rookies I trust ever? Maybe one a class. Maybe. There's plenty of classes that I don't that I didn't trust any of the rookies. Like, I don't trust Paolo.
Right.
Do you?
I'm a big Paolo guy.
I mean, but he was just 3 of 14. He was awful down the stretch.
Hey, you know what? He played this shitty situation. Right?
Yeah, again. But do I trust him?
Most rookies, to your point, no. It's not that Paolo Banchero is going to single-handedly lead. If I'm in a situation where I need him,
listen, I love the Magic. I love Paolo. I think that team's going to be tremendous. But if you're asking me, do I trust them? No, I don't trust
rookies. Play the game. How many rookies you've trusted?
That's what I'm saying. Braun.
Yep.
Zion, Luka.
See, you trust. That's interesting. You trust Zion. It's like
it was less about nothing but injuries was the only thing I didn't trust.
No, for sure. I know. Duncan, obviously, that goes
Duncan. Yeah, you talk about generational guys.
But even Kobe.
Hell no.
Kobe he airballed in the playoffs.
It was 7 points a game in the playoffs, or in his rookie year.
In his rookie year was 7 points a game.
Nothing.
Remember the Utah game, 3 straight air balls. It was like, yo, shit.
Cooked. Can you imagine if that had happened on today's social media?
No.
He would never play again.
I mean, Jordan's admittedly said this. He's like, I would have been wrecked if Twitter was around when I played.
Just fried. Did I trust rookie Dame? Mostly because I had to, but no.
But that's what my Banchero thing would be.
Yeah. They weren't supposed to be good, guys. They were, at the end of games in that rookie year, hey, Dame, get that ball to LaMarcus, all right, man?
Yeah.
That, I'll be honest, because I'm going to trust the All-NBA guy.
Right.
Over the rookie. That's how it's going to go. But, as it pertains to Hart, I mentioned this when they went out on the road trip. I am going to ask Chauncey why Nasir is not seeing more minutes.
I can't wait for that. They play the Bucks tomorrow. Oh. And I will monitor the minutes.
I'm telling you right now, he's going to play more minutes because that Giannis dude needs to see physical coverage.
He needs
also Middleton's back.
Yeah.
So I have a hard time seeing how Nas and GP don't play minutes. But yes, Hart has an issue. And the thing about Hart is, he has heart. Shoot me in the face. He doesn't, the effort doesn't wane, but it does impact his game with the way his shot is right now. I was going to do a side-by-side of his jumper just to show how different they are, but I just haven't had time. But going off of it, his release time is a disaster right now, and he's actually kind of got a quasi-hitch in his jumper. So he's record scratching on the dip, and then he's actually got a hitch on the way down. He's shooting on the way down with a hitch. There's 3 new things in his shot.
Yeah.
And that's just blech, as a recipe for disaster. He's not quite Ben Simmonsing it because he's still letting it go. That's the difference. It's not this full mental block, but man, does it feel like it's going to be there real quick.
Yeah. Well, I think I went back and watched Chicago because I was coaching my daughter's team, and it hurt to coach the first loss of the season for our team and then go and watch the DVR your favorite team.
You're over there cutting losses into your chest.
Dude, I didn't think I'd care about fifth grade girls basketball, and here I am. I'm like, I want to make them run lines,
running gassers.
Suicides. It's just like, what are we doing here? Let's rebound. Let's get the ball back in the hoop. But there were a couple possessions in that game too, especially when it came down to kind of winning time there. They weren't great. Dame was good the first half. Ant got it going late. They got it. They pressed him. They got close. And I'm watching Josh pass up shots there, and it just. I like this guy a lot. It sucks to say this, but he just seems to kind of be in his own head from behind the line. He doesn't want to be the guy to take that shot. He wants anybody else to take it. And it's hard. I think it's hard to gain offensive consistency when you can't consistently rely on somebody to kind of play the role that it seems like they should be playing offense.
I saw him getting looked off.
Teams don't respect it. They know.
No, I'm talking about his own guys.
Sure.
I can think distinctly of 2 possessions in the Chicago game where the passer stopped.
Why would I pass you the ball if I know you're not going to do the right thing with it?
Or even if I know that you're going to shoot it, I know you don't trust your shot right now.
You already think about the rebounding part of that. Yeah.
Or you're going to stop it and attack a closeout and the spacing's complete dog shit right now.
Yeah.
To Damian Ant's credit, they are still hitting him more often than not, but they had the lineup of Eubanks and Hart on the floor at the same time in the Chicago game, and it was just untenable. Like, they just could not do it. And that's why you saw when Trendon came in, things kind of changed because of his playmaking, because he's got a little more offensive juice. Even though he doesn't have like this long record of threes, he's just, his mobility and passing kind of unlocks some stuff that Drew can't do. But they're Westbrooking Hart at this point.
Yeah.
They were playing 4-on-5. They were shrinking the floor entirely. The night before in Memphis, in Washington, they ran a box and one on Anfernee Simons. He got so hot, they were like, yeah, we really don't need to worry about anybody else. We're going to make sure that we have Anfernee Simons completely covered. And you can do that when you just don't have the requisite shooting on the floor. Because if you do, that's the issue.
Right.
So, I genuinely hope Josh figures it out. I hope it's not. I hope it's just something stupid that he's not comfortable in his role, or the trade speculation, or these guys have lives.
And sometimes too, like if he ends up getting moved and he starts hitting threes, I'm not gonna be that surprised. No. Sometimes it's about like, hey, all right, that's done. Move on to the next, and you need a couple shots go down, you get confidence back.
Yeah. This from Jonathan Evers at Johnny Evers 3. Given what you said about neither Vando nor Grant being particularly viable at the 3, who would you think would start the position, and how would you see those minutes breaking down if we trade Hart and Vando as the primary player we get back? I don't think that 1-for-1 transaction is taking place. I mean, it can't in the CBA, but beyond that, yes, I believe Jeremy is one of the few guys in the league that's kind of purely a 4. There's a few of those guys in the league where I'm like, yeah, he's a 4.
But we had some people in the questions saying like, hey, move him to 3 and open it up this way.
Or you could try some freaky weird lineups and run him at the 5, but then you struggle with rebounding, all those things. But I do believe Vando is more 4-5. Like, he's like, Jeremy is what I call an apex wing. Vando's a big.
Vando's running center if he gets traded.
Yes, like or a super big lineup where he's a 4 and Jeremy's 5.
Sure.
Nas at 3 kind of a situation. Or I'm sorry, I'm getting guys mixed up here. With Vando at the 4, like if they got a 5, like a Mo Bamba,
right?
Like a stretch 5,
right. Then it just more becomes positionless basketball. You're just playing the strengths of what different players can do.
Not necessarily positionless, but like less position groups. It's not point guard, shooting guard, 2 different forwards and a big.
Right.
It's like.
But if you play Vando with Mo Bamba, for example, Mo's going to probably be more.
He's your pick and pop guy, and your Vando's going to play in the middle. But like it's stylistically, it's kind of that lineup would be like 2 primary ball handlers, a wing, and 2 bigs, which would be untraditional.
Right.
And, well, I'd say it's more traditional, but untraditional for this era of basketball. But as far as like who would start at the 3, I would expect that as of right now, it would be Nasir Little. I don't know if Josh Hart's moved in another deal for, I don't know, like an Isaac Okoro type. I would imagine Okoro would then be your starting 3, and then Nas would be your primary kind of wing off the bench. Your bench would be at that point in time
Sharp, GP, Nas,
Vando,
yeah,
and GP. Yeah. Which
isn't bad.
Is that a better place for you to be in? I think so.
I think it's better than what they're currently dealing with. Yeah.
And this is kind of a follow-up question that kind of relates from Craig Anspach or Anspach at Spock 089. We need size. Please tell me we will make a move this week. I think it's kind of what we've been signaling that they're doing, right? Like, even if they swapped Hart for Crowder's bigger than, like, Crowder is a 3.
Yeah, he's like a legit 6'8", right?
6'7", but like he's big.
Yeah.
He's big. He's big as hell. There's no denying what he is, right? And the idea of him, like we talked about it feels like he's the guy that's the last guy you add to that title team, but he's also cheaper, and perhaps that's what you're looking for if you're going to try to swing Jeremy for more money in the offseason, and then you have things lined up contractually going forward, and he's an asset you can flip. There's a lot of different things there. But I think your 2 options if you're trading Josh Hart are Nasir or the Field. The Field being if they bring in another wing with Josh Hart's contract, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
So, it's just, I don't know. Here we go. I think it's an interesting place for them to obviously look at because they've addressed 3 positions right now. 1, 2, and 4. 3 and 5 are in flux. What you do with 5 doesn't really matter everywhere else. What you do with 3 does. Because they haven't had a way to... They haven't had a way at that... They haven't had anybody at that 3 spot that made sense since Batum.
I would argue it's easily been their biggest weak spot as a franchise.
It was the 4 until they filled it with Jeremy.
Sure, but see, I look, Jeremy has been probably the best 4 if you're not counting Lamar. Well, if you're counting LaMarcus as a 5, which he kind of was at the end there, but I just feel like it's such an important position in the sport that it's like to not. There's a part of me too, like when you look around the league and you see teams that are succeeding, obviously certain guys are carrying franchises, right? Mm-hmm. Like having a Giannis can make up for a lot of spots that you're missing, and you can just kind of fill in the blanks and it plugs and plays and it works. Mm-hmm. Not having a valuable 3, like a truly good sized
thing they've been chasing.
3, it just kills you. It's almost the equivalent to me of you got the quarterback, you got some receivers, you can't find your offensive lineman. You need the tackle. Like you need a spot that's really important that can carry you. If you were to get an NFL team that has a lot of pieces and they have an okay to mediocre to not great left tackle, it's going to be a big hole. And it feels like it's been a big hole for this franchise
since 2015.
Since LaMarcus left.
Yeah. So that's the thing is I think they've identified 1 with Jeremy. Now, can they go get the guy at 3? And I think that's actually a good parallel to draw because everybody's like, well, what if you lose Nurk and, you've got to get better to lose him in all these situations. Where was Robin Lopez on that sliding scale? Mm-hmm. Or did he just fit a role? Mm-hmm. Like, they've got Dame, they've got Ant, they've got Jeremy. That's, if you can get a 3 in there that rises above replacement level, and that's the thing is they've kind of skipped, like Mo Harkless wasn't even replacement level.
No, that was just like, yo, run of the mill. We have a guy. Anybody can kind of.
You have a physical profile. Yeah, there's nobody around the league. You could have looked at every other starting three and been like, would you take this guy? And it's like, yeah. Didn't have to think about that one. I don't mean that as like slanderous to Mo, but he wasn't.
It is what it is.
Yeah, when he left here, he wasn't like burning things up anywhere else. Like
we didn't really hear a whole lot of his name. Yeah.
No, so they made do with what they had, and I think it's much easier in today's NBA. It's either you have a star type player or near star at the 5, or you get a guy that knows a role.
Passable. Yep.
And I think that makes it a little easier to digest and understand is if you look back at what this team has kind of been. This from Jake, and we'll end on this one. Jake, at Jake and Aussies, your projection for a starting layup at playoff time. Most likely player to surprise on the upside in the back half of the season. Who's most likely to fall off? This is bold of Jake. He's presuming playoffs.
Yeah, I like that. We need to all be there because I need this team to make the playoffs.
I think we all bet money on it.
Player most likely to fall off and player most likely to step up.
Basically, yeah.
That's the question.
Back half of the season.
I'll say player to most likely step up, and I'm gonna ride a recency bias here. And by the way, this could age like absolute milk in the dead of a summer's day, because I don't know what the trade deadline is gonna bring them. I'm gonna say most surprising, Trendon Watford.
Ooh,
T. Watt. I really like what I've seen for him. I thought that was a great road trip from him. And look, some of this he's playing out of necessity. They kind of need somebody like him out there because of where they're currently at with their depth, with their size. But I think he's kind of showing Chauncey some stuff that translates to more playing time anyway. He doesn't need to be your biggest dude out there. And he's serviceable enough in spurts, I think, where they can get away, where he can play kind of a Draymond role, but an ability to actually maybe shoot a 3 here and there. And I'm just going to go out on a limb, and somebody who's not playing a whole lot but now is getting some minutes, I'll say Trendon. Guy who's going to fall off, I kind of hate that question, personally. God damn it. I hate that. Drew?
Okay.
I think some of that, again, is via trade, and he's, again, now dealing with some back injuries.
So, interestingly enough, over the last 5 games, Trendon Watford and Josh Hart are both averaging the same amount of points, 10.8, making 4.5 shots a game. Trendon shooting 68, 100, 100 from the field. I think he's 6 for his last 6 from 3, which is really useful. 3 rebounds, 3 assists. The difference there is that Josh Hart, being the vacuum cleaner that he is averaging 9 boards. But I think you're seeing Watford filling some of the Josh Hart role as far as playmaking. And I think it's a very, very good spot to start for both sides of it, like both being the most likely to be successful or the most likely to fail, because he has the least amount of experience in that role. I'm going to cheat on the upside and say Shaden.
Okay.
Get some legs back underneath him. Like nobody recuperates like young people, right? 19-year-old getting 2 weeks off.
Right.
That man is going to come back, dunk contest champion.
Yep.
He's going to come back. Listen, there's something about Shaden Sharp that when he does something good, he's like a puppy and he gets all kinds of confidence.
Right.
What happens if he does something cool like win a dunk contest? Does he come back with a little bit of swagger? I'll tell you right now, Anfernee Simons came back feeling awful good about that. It was one of those things like, oh, you know what? It is the dunk contest, but I just won that shit.
Yeah.
And listen, man, confidence is such a big part of this. I'm going to maybe go outside the box here. Most likely to fall off, it's Damian Lillard. Only because he's been so unbelievably good.
How dare you?
Literally on his best run of his career.
How dare you do that to the saint that is Damian Lillard?
The fall off is going to go from
there is no fall off.
Literal
Literal
MVP candidate to demigod.
The 40 points.
He's going to continue to average 40 a game.
The 40 points, 8 assists, and 7 rebounds. That is completely sustainable on 65% from the field, 39 from 3, and 92 from the free throw line. How dare you throw that out there? How dare you?
You know what he's averaging over his last 10 now?
It's probably really stupid.
37, 8, and 5
Jesus. Those are the
on
best numbers of his life.
on 51, 40, 96.
Oh my
And
God.
he's taking 11 and a half free throws a game.
What splits, what aggressiveness, what efficiency. He's the best efficiency player in NBA history.
Just like what he is doing right now is just absolutely absurd. So that's
And
why.
not a day goes by that I'm not grateful that it's at least on my television.
Right?
How dare you say that? I'll be blocked you on Twitter. You just find out tonight, blocked on Twitter. You're like, wow.
Send a message. Come on, man.
Hey, man, this is not what it seems.
But yeah, like he's just been so good.
Yeah.
Like it's not only just like his best run. It's like an all-time run. It genuinely is. He's doing something nobody's ever done like in this franchise's history as far as scoring.
Oh yeah.
He is just on a level of heater that's even for him is nuts.
Yep.
So that would be the guy I think was most likely to regress at all. Well, and I think we'll wrap on this one because this is we don't think we've touched on this really at all. From Josh Emtaj at Emtaj Josh. I'm butchering names at this point. What is Nurk's trade value? As someone who's been on team move him for as long as I can remember, it's hard for me to put much value on him or see any team around the league really valuing him. How do outsiders view him? It's not a positive asset.
No.
But there is value to the teams that are it's a very narrow needle to thread. Teams that have cap space or want to have a contract on the books at that level. And who also wouldn't mind a big that they can toss out there and mostly count on.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense of like doing the things that need to be done to a successful enough level that you can just kind of get through it.
Right.
Like, I know it's not a ringing endorsement, but like those are the teams that you're looking at. Would a Keon Johnson need to be attached? Would you have to do a bigger deal with Josh Hart and balance out the value or something along those lines? Probably to get back what you want. But the flip side of it is, for all of that, well, they don't have value. There are guys on other teams who you would think are maybe more valuable than Jusuf Nurkic that behind the scenes, they just want him out the door.
Yeah.
That's how the Blazers got Jusuf Nurkic.
Mm-hmm.
You can have this first round pick, but you have to take Nurk.
Yeah. That was the afterthought. Everybody was like, yo, did we get happy about that draft pick? And then he was like, Jusuf Nurkic. And you're like, I don't know how to feel about that guy. There were a lot of people that felt that way about that.
So, but is it Russell Westbrook? No, it's not that bad. Like,
hey, say what you want. Dude's been traded like 4 times since he signed that contract.
But again, that's my point. No contract is like untradeable.
Right.
So, I don't know. It's I think it's better than what people think it is.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like, is it great? No. Is it good? No. Is it meh? Maybe. Maybe a little under meh. But I think there's probably 20 meh deals in the league. 2/3 of the league have a deal that probably like, like this. The LA Clippers have one in Norm Powell. Like, he was just here. So, but as far as value-wise, like, it's not the most toxic thing, but you do probably need, you do need to include something with him probably to get a return that you want. Or you have to be willing to take somebody else's, I don't want to say garbage because it's not anybody's garbage. If you don't want to take somebody else's poor fit or fresh start.
I have not much to add. I think you summed it up. I've said how I feel about it. I think it's a negative asset, but hopefully they can find the right spot for it.
All you need is one sucker.
Exactly. That's all it takes.
All right. Appreciate you all being here. Like, rate, review, subscribe. Help us grow the show. Thank you all very much. We'll have you covered over the next couple of days. Obviously, we have the watch party, or not the watch party. I'll be at the game Monday and Wednesday. Wednesday, no Steph Curry, obviously, because of his injury.
Yeah, that was a bummer.
Yeah, definitely kind of wanted to see him here. It's always fun. The flip side is, works out better for Portland.
It's a good chance, yeah.
The Warriors are a team that have not been good on the road, obviously.
Mhm.
We will have a show probably Tuesday in between the games as a primer. And then regardless of what happens, I shouldn't say that, 98% certainty following the Warriors game, I'll do an After Dark leading into the trade deadline the next morning. And then I will be live from noon to 3 on Danny and Dusty with my co-host Dusty Harrow right as the trade deadline closes. And we will crush nothing but NBA trade deadline stuff on the Thursday before the Super Bowl because my co-host will be tied up in the corner.
Oh.
He
Tell me what you're into.
Yeah, we don't kink shame here. But again, thank you all so very much. I appreciate you. We love you. You can find us on social media at Danny Marang, at Brandon Sprague, at Jacked Ramsays. You can email the show, jackramsays@gmail.com. Again, like, rate, review, subscribe, help us grow the show. Click a little thumbs up. It helps us out in the almighty algorithm. You got anything else to add?
No, I think we're ready to go. It's going to be a busy week. Obviously, we got a couple games here, but I'd imagine Thursday we'll also have a Ramses for you at some point.
We will have a deadline wrap-up.
There's going to be too much of us to hear this week, but we ask that you listen to all of it.
Yes. We will be around. And then post-deadline, if you remember from the interview we had with Joe Cronin before the season, he told us he would come back post-deadline, and I have confirmed that. So we will have Joe, maybe not the day after the deadline, but post-deadline, we will have him on the show. So
there you go.
Other than that, everybody else have a wonderful night, and we'll talk soon. Bye.